I'm sure it's almost impossible if you are in social media land in the last couple of days in the English-speaking world, anywhere in the English-speaking world, New Zealand, Australia, the UK, anywhere in North America, or anywhere else, if you're plugged into that world, it's impossible to not hear all of these discussions about John McCain, right? And I recognize that some people really don't approve of a lot of things that John McCain did in his life as a politician. Some people like him, some people can't stand him, and so on and so forth. But I did hear something said, and there's been these really beautiful eulogies that have been made by senators and all sorts of people about John McCain, and I've listened to a few of them. The one that made the biggest impression on me was Lindsey Graham. Now, I'm not necessarily a fan of Lindsey Graham's. He definitely would not be on my short list of most favorite politicians in the Western world. But his eulogy was absolutely fantastic, and he said one thing that I've been thinking about again and again. He said, "John McCain taught us how to lose." And he said he taught us how to lose with grace and with dignity. And he gave a number of different examples. I mean, obviously, the most famous one was when he lost to Barack Obama. And he immediately came out and said, "Barack Obama is my president, and I support him," and gave this speech. I mean, that's the most famous example. But apparently, people who worked with him in the Senate said that he did this all the time in big and small ways. He would fight very, very hard for what he wanted. I mean, the guy was like an intensely competitive person. He was not a shy, retiring flower at all. Very, very competitive person. And he wanted to win, and he had a bad temper, and he could get very fired up, trying to achieve, whatever it was that he wanted. But once he lost the election or lost the vote, he would calm down and he would get behind the decision. And that's a very difficult thing to do for many people, but it's absolutely vital to having healthy relationships and healthy institutions. Right? And this is something which Jordan Peterson talks about in 12 Rules for Life. He says that if you look at social animals, I mean, it's not just us, it's social animals in general, you engage in all of these games, right? And many of these games are competitive. And he says, but it's very important to realize, and most kids intuitively pick this up, even if they can't sort of state it in a propositional way. Most kids pick up on the fact that the most important thing in any game is not winning. I mean, winning's very important. We're not saying being competition's bad or anything like that. But the most important thing in any game is being invited back to play again. Right? So being invited to the next game is the absolute most important thing. Then, the second most important thing would be winning. Right? But if you win in a way that's so dirty and so disgusting and so ruthless that you cheat, right? And if you play in a really dirty way, you might win this particular game, but nobody's going to trust you at all. Nobody's going to have so they're not going to invite you to play again. And so what Lindsey Graham said about John McCain, and a number of people said this. This was also Joe Biden in his eulogy to John McCain. He mentioned this quality as well. So apparently this was something that was well known, that John McCain was very, very good at playing the game in a very vigorous way, but he knew how to lose with grace and dignity. And another thing Lindsey Graham mentioned is he said, in many parts of the world, elections are incredibly ruthless and nasty precisely because if you lose the election, you're finished, right? You might be thrown in jail. Your people might be thrown in jail. The consequences of losing an election are so extreme that it makes it, it raises the stakes to such an extent that people are willing to do absolutely anything to win. Right. So I think that's something very, very, regardless of what you think about John McCain's politics, I think that's something in this day and age that we should really take to heart. Right. It's very, very important when you're engaging in an online discussion with somebody in social media land, or when you're in a debate or an election. It's very important to, you can be very competitive, and we can all want, our agenda to go forward, right? We want things. You don't have to be completely apathetic about it, but we have to play the game in such a way that it's not all or nothing, right? You can't say, if my side doesn't win, then I will not accept the result at all, right? That this will not be my prime minister, or this will not be my president. We have to play the game in such a way that that we can deal with the outcome, right? I mean, one of the most amazing things about a sort of civilized democratic societies is the peaceful transfer of power, right? That's what's really, really important. That's what makes them amazing. It's not so much who wins, but how we deal with who loses. I mean, we have, in parliamentary systems, we have techniques in place which try as much as possible to encourage this behavior. So we'll talk about the loyal opposition, and you'll address somebody as the honorable member from, wherever, right? And these are all attempts to try and make it clear that although this is my political opponent and we have very different ideas about what the good is and what we should be doing, this person is also a patriot. This person is also, means well, and they are also, right, they're not like a treasonous monster, right? So I think that's something that we should definitely, something that we can learn from John McCain in the light of his death.